Hello, everybody. So the webinar is we're started and we've got people joining us, and it is lovely to see you all joining us. Welcome. Thank you so much for spending your lunch break with us. We're going to be talking today about strategic partnerships. I've got Anthony from SeedLegals and Lucy from Part-Time CMO. That is right, isn't it, Lucy? So Lucy, do introduce yourself while we're just letting everyone join.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy Woolfenden. I'm the part-time CMO and founder of Scale Up. I work with tech startups at go-to-market to build their go-to-market strategy and to really build out their marketing comms and their marketing team to really get to Series A.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us. And Anthony, lovely to have you here.
Hello, I'm founder and CEO at SeedLegals. We're about 100 plus people now. The best way to do your funding round or raise before the round and after. And we've just launched our pitch product minutes ago today. That means before you even go to talk to investors, you want to get them to look at your pitch deck. So you can now create a pitch page on SeedLegals with your mission statement, upload your deck, your video, and share with investors. And when they're interested, you can track them because they're often like herding cats, and then turn that into investment. But today we're here to talk about partnerships, of which, in a sense, this is one of them. So it'll be a fun discussion and hopefully valuable as well.
Exactly. So while we're just letting everyone join, we wanted to put this quote up here. I absolutely love it, from the Harvard Business Review, how they talk about strategic networking is critical for business success. And I think Anthony, Lucy, and I have all seen a lot of growth in our own businesses through this idea of strategic partnerships. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first question would be, so Lucy, it'd be really good to understand when we talk about strategic partnerships, what does that mean to you?
So I think when I get down to actually the bare bones of what it means, it's joining forces with non-competitive and like-minded partners for mutually beneficial success. And that's because we share similar audiences. So really we can help get to those audiences and, to coin the phrase, dance on other people's dance floors to reach those people. And what you get, one of the biggest things you get out of that is that social proof, because it's almost the same as a referral in that sort of sense that if you're partnering with somebody, they rub off on you, their success and the trust that their audience have with them rub off on you. And that's a really great stepping stone as you're starting out in business.
I love that. I love dancing on someone else's dance floor. That sounds really fun. We should do more of that. Anthony, what's it mean to you? Because we were talking earlier about if you even need that word strategic in the strategic partnerships.
Great point. So I think that for me, I divide this into two parts. One of them is what's the main focus of your business? And then two, when partnership opportunities arise, how do you take care of them? So one of the things I see consistently at startups is that they're looking to do too much initially. They want to do B2C and B2B, or maybe they start off doing a B2C, a consumer proposition, but the growth isn't there. So they start looking at B2B. And so for them, partnerships often means business to business, as opposed to, for example, a partnership is a loose collection of people coming together for a shared goal like this. So my first thought is, in fact, the counterfactual, which is, whenever I see an early stage pitch deck and the company's plan is to do a consumer proposition and B2B with APIs and Tableau and data and sell data, I go, how many people are you? And if the answer is less than or fewer than 50, I go, well, you might be better off just picking one thing. So just before we dive into the types of partnerships, just as the founder and often a sort of tech founder, I think one of the key things to keep in mind is the composition of your team and the way you think. So if you are just a consumer destination website, you want to move fast and break things and fix them again. So you want to find out what things are working for your customers. You might change the button on the homepage. You might introduce a new feature. Well, it's not working, so you kill the feature, change the button color again. And so your team is motivated to try things, see how they work, and change them. But when you have partners, it's often the opposite. And I'm saying this because years ago, in my previous startup, I had big strategic partners who wrote me very big checks as investors. And then they wanted access to APIs. And I found that my business was slightly schizophrenic. The team on the one hand are saying, move fast, ship stuff. If the people don't like it, change it, come up with ideas. It doesn't really matter. And my strategic partners were going, please don't change anything. You change the APIs. No, can you put them back? We don't want to be, we need 2 weeks notice of change. So my first caution, and I'll get back to this in a moment when I go small, medium, and large t-shirt sizes for partnerships, is that think about why you're doing a partnership. Is it that you have a core business and you're looking to get more traffic for it? Or is it that you want to have a different core business because the first one isn't working? Or is it that you want to spread your bets and try both at once? And if it's about both at once, you might want to start in your very earliest stage, just focusing on one, and then morph into the other, as opposed to trying to spread your firepower too widely when the different parts of your business, or B2C and B2B, might have very different technical SLA, KPI, customer management ways of working. End rant on pick one and pick wisely.
So you're saying don't embark on strategic partnerships until you are really clear on why you're doing the strategic partnership, and that you're not going to go too far down that road and then sort of be bound to them when you might not have actually got all your ducks in a row.
Yes, but before I spend more time on that, maybe Lucy, your thoughts on that, and then I'll go back to the small, medium, large.
I think there are some really good reasons to partner. And I think, as a startup, when you've got a small team, everything you have to do is have to be efficient and effective. So you really need to be sure about what goals you're trying to achieve by everything you do, because you don't have time to be, frenetic. But I think just thinking about some key reasons to partner, what the first one is, it's a great way. Is it a good channel to reach your target audience when they're in that active mindset? So, for me being on here today, we're talking about startups and marketing, and our audiences are shared, and they are all tech startups. So it's very relevant for me. Is that benefit from, can we benefit from that transferred trust? So, is the partner that you're collaborating with somebody that's well trusted, that is a brand that your audience would like to see you with and would respect? I think that's a really important one. And that, again, that positive effect on brand loyalty, as well as, is it about growing your audience on your newsletter? Is it about having this content and having them linked, which will help your SEO on your website? It's thinking about what those key reasons are around audience trust and growth.
Okay, so I buy into that completely and agreed. And so here's what I like to do. One of the wonderful things in the area we're in, which is startups. Startups love networking. There are many companies with mutual collaboration opportunities, whether it be, obviously in the fundraising business, it's all about connecting with investors. So we get endless numbers of incomings from people saying, can you match me with investors? Can we partner on this? Can you write a blog post? And so on. So what I like to do to try and keep focused is to put all partnership ideas into one of 3 levels: small, medium, and large. Small, it's a mutual win-win. You don't need to do any tech work. There are no complexities. We're going to get together on a call like this. We might have our sales team refer our customers to somebody else. If you're looking for trademarks, we don't do trademarks. It makes complete sense for us to have a partnership. So small is super light touch. You don't need to do tech dev. You're not stopping anything you're doing. You're not diverting resources. But of course, the gain you're going to get from that is probably going to be limited. So let's go one step up. So medium level might be you create a partner page on your website. So you're doing a bit of work, you're listing it, you're turning something that might have been a a recommendation one-to-one into a bit more of a drive-by. So as people are using your product, they're seeing it. You've got some light touch way. Oh, you want to do something? We have a partnership with a bank. Here's how to create your account. We get a mutual referral fee, but you're not building much stuff. You've added a bit of code and you've got a contract at this point. This is a bit of work, a bit more reward. And then large is now where you have a partners going, great, let's do API integration. So suddenly your dev team have stopped work on your consumer products while you build these APIs, and you're talking to their team, and then they don't want the APIs to change. So of course, this might lead to major benefits, but is also potentially a very large diversion. So, you know, we're blessed with many partnership discussions at SeedLegals. And in every case, I like to robustly put them into these three categories. And category one is a no-brainer. It's like, great, let's do something together. We don't need to overthink it. It's a wonderful win-win. And that's how you get your name out there everywhere. And then if that works, we now move up the level. But any discussion that starts with, let's do API integration and let's do development, I always go, let's see what we can do as a simple, no diversion from our strategy win-win before we go that way. Because otherwise you'll find that half your business is told to go, go, go and get customers, and half of them is told to work slowly on this API with zero downtime that never changes. And it's really hard to have the schizophrenic way of working the business.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's that starting from that agile approach to everything. It's about test, optimize, and then scale. So what is that lowest hanging fruit? And at Yonk, what we did was we created a network of lots of fintechs that were in a similar space but non-competitive. And at first we would literally do something as simple as mentioning them in blog posts. So I'm talking about them on social or recommending. And it was only where we really saw a clear link where in the consumer's mind that we would then go and bring them onto the yacht marketplace and do that API integration and think about it from more of a business partnership versus a marketing partnership. So definitely test and learn if you can. You know, if you've got clear channels for customer listening and customer testing, talk to your customers. You know, what brands do they like? Would they like to see you in those channels? Would they like to see you with that brand? And what do they think of it? Because it is about driving that perception and your reputation. So it's so important to be listening at each stage. And the other part I wanted to build on there is I 100% agree with mutually beneficial terms, especially as a small brand. If you go and partner directly with a much larger brand that will really sort of, I don't want to use the word bully, but it is pretty much bully you into doing what they want to do in the structure that they want you to do it. And that isn't always good for your brand.
So that just quickly, if anyone's got any questions, we have got the Q&A open. So feel free to put questions in the Q&A. We will be answering them as we go along. If it's relevant to the conversation, we'll also be answering them at the end. And obviously we also had quite a lot of questions come through in the registration process, which we will be talking about too. So we talked about what a strategic partnership is. We talked about, these different levels from the sort of small, medium and large. How do you talk to me a bit more about how you actually go about finding these strategic partnerships? You talked a bit about doing sort of customer listening, but something that I think is really important is to have shared values and to you don't just want to partner with anyone, do you? Partner with someone who's got access to the same audience as you. It's really important that you're partnering with someone that you believe has the same outlook, the same values, and that you feel proud to partner with, and something's not going to come up further down the line where you're like, oh, actually, I wish I hadn't partnered with this brand. So how do you go about finding those partners? Obviously, Anthony, I imagine you have lots of people coming to you, but for startups, early stage founders, what's the process they should use?
I think
Sorry. Go for it, Lisa. Yeah.
It's quite funny because there is that tipping point where you first set out, it is you knocking on people's doors and you asking. And then there's suddenly that tipping point where you realize actually they're coming to you, and you can be more strategic about who you're partnering with and what you're doing. And you develop your criteria in a much more developed and thought through process. Whereas at the beginning, it's, oh, there's an opportunity, let's jump on it and let's see how it runs. I don't know if you felt that, if you had that tipping point with SeedLegals or...
Yes, absolutely. So exactly as you say, when you start out, you'll call anybody that will take your call, and eventually people are calling you. And then it's, as the founder, you initially, of course, the super networker, because that's what you have to do as a founder. And then after a while, hopefully you have a marketing team or someone else partnerships team, and you can start sending things your way. And eventually they start writing to you going, dude, can you stop sending people my way? Or how do we help? How do we deal with very nice people, but it's just not aligned? So I think, on Emmy's question about finding people who've got shared values, I think it's actually quite easy to see that from their website, from talking to them. Do they believe in the same mission that you have, to the extent that you have a mission and it's important? So you can, I think, fairly easily see if it's a mismatch. If it's in investing in equity, we like at SeedLegals, our mission is to protect both parties in a transaction. The founders and the investors will be protected from things that go right or go wrong. So if we see somebody in the investment space, maybe the Wonga of investment or something like that, that's not something that aligns with that mission, and so we may pass on that quite quickly. I think the challenge separately is where you have a shared mission, shared values, but actually for the customer, there's no synergy. Either they've got a slightly competing proposition, or it's not clear to the customer why you're listing them. So, if we've got a partnership with, I don't know, a company that does, let's say hypothetically, UK visas for foreign workers, there's some similarity, but someone coming to your site, it might just look a bit like you guys are partnering with anybody. Some fraction will want it, but for most, it seems maybe too wide. So finding that right one that creates an envelope of things around you sounds like the goal. And then the question is how you gently, in the nicest way, decline on the ones a little bit outside of that, because you never know what might change in future. Exactly.
That's so important, isn't it? If you love networking, and you're just saying that as a founder, it's critical that you're a super networker. You got those relationships, and people move on, and people move to different businesses, and you just never know when you're going to meet those people again. So that's the tricky thing, isn't it? To basically say, not at the moment, this isn't right, but also to continue, to not cut those people off, and to be open to the fact that we all move around and we all work with different clients, and we often come across those people at some point in the future.
Exactly. Now, by the way, there's one thing, of course, whenever you create, let's say, an affiliate or referral with somebody, one of the easiest partnerships is a referral or affiliate agreement, where you may send them traffic, or they may send you traffic. In some cases, it's just done on a friendly, we don't want anything basis, which I very much like. The value of our business, in my view, is not on getting a referral fee on some business, and I much prefer to tell our customers, I really recommend these guys. They're awesome. They don't pay us, we don't pay them. But for many businesses, that is their bread and butter. And so even simply in terms of the legals, do you have any liability if you send somebody's way and so on? You might want, and of course we're a legal tech business, some agreement for that. So as we began to create affiliate agreements, my mantra is, use technology to put ourselves out of business. So the third affiliate agreement we made, we productized and put on SeedLegals. So if you're looking for an affiliate agreement where somebody pays you for referrals, you can do this on SeedLegals completely free. So just head over to the agreements, commercial agreements section, and that's a super easy way to get started. And actually, an affiliate agreement is quite useful, because sometimes just filling it in will clarify the benefits and the value of that, as opposed to, yeah, we met in the pub, it's awesome, let's send people each other's way. And then it doesn't really, it's nice friends, but it doesn't amount to business value. And that agreement then lets you, at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, see the value. And then you can, taking a data-driven approach, chase the ones that add the most value, or sunset the ones that are not adding value.
It's really, I was just going to say, it's really interesting, isn't it? Like whether you pay for those referrals or not. And I think it depends from business to business. I'm kind of the same as you. I don't ask for referral fees, and I don't generally pay. I just have a, I like to support good people, and I want to help my clients by sending them to the right people. But I think that a lot of business is done on referral, on people paying referral fees, and it kind of like, if you're not necessarily offering one, but then you might be cutting yourself off to opportunities. So it's fantastic that you've got that there, and I think it is good to have those contracts and things in place for people, isn't it? Because so many people have these agreements and it's kind of like loose, and then maybe you haven't actually said how long does that agreement last for. Is it just the first payment, or is it for 12 months, or is it for the lifetime of that client? So talking about all those things up front with your strategic partners is super important.
Actually, sorry, that's a very good point, because the worst thing about a partnership started is one that goes south. And it goes south often because you haven't thought through some of the features up front. Am I paying somebody for each thing, my referral partner, for each thing they buy from me, or only the first one? Does it last forever, or last a year? What if they buy a funding round now and in 3 years' time buy another funding round? Do I need to pay them again? And that's where friends fall out, because you didn't think about it up front. And so creating those agreements is a great way on both sides to clarify the term is 1 year. Anything you purchase in the first year will pay you for that year, and anything the next year as well. And now you all understand what the expectations are.
Yeah.
I think we used to have, the lawyer at Sterling Bank used to have a sign above his head which says presumption is the mother of, you can imagine the rest of the line. But I think it's really true. And even where it's a non-monetary agreement, once you get past the stage of where you're committing to something and you need that other partner to fulfill their part of it to make it work, then it's good just to have it in writing, because that is, especially when you're just getting used to working together, you might presume they're doing something, or presume, not. And I've definitely had those situations where, you learn by experience, don't you? But you turn up and you think somebody else is doing something, and you turn up and realize on the day that actually you're supposed to have done that already. And it's that mad dash to try and make it work before anybody turns up at the event, or, etc.
Can I jump back to something we spoke a little bit about earlier, which is about big partnerships, or partnerships that are fundamentally mismatched with a company of a much larger size? So, some of the partnerships are exactly, some similar sized companies get together, agile, we'll send traffic each way, we'll do webinars, we'll create events, whatever it might be. But sometimes your partner is the NHS or a bank or something like that. And often in many early stage startups, you're building a proposition that needs the incomings from a bank, or you're doing some med tech and you're hoping to go with the NHS, or you're doing video and you're looking to do something with the BBC and so on. And here, I think this is a huge problem, because I see whenever there's a sort of fundamental impedance mismatch, it's very hard to do those connections. And there are consultants whose business is try and get those things right. And the problem is, for a large company, they want robust legals with GDPR and liabilities and indemnities and warranties, and they can have an entire department spend a year creating a contract for you. Your business will be dead in a year if you're not doing anything except trying to do that deal. And I saw this firsthand when I was at the BBC. I used to head up BBC iPlayer, and I thought I was like the good guy. I'm the startup guy in the Beeb. And people would come to me with a new innovative video solution, and they would desperately want the BBC's business, even if the BBC wasn't paying them to have that on the slide deck. And I would tell them, listen, I'm really sorry. You should not try to do business with us. We would want to be awesome, but our procurement process is so slow. And even if I could do a trial with you, I can't turn that into a proper commercial thing afterwards, because then I have to go through an EU procurement process, which will take a year and you'll be dead. So anytime you're chasing a large pot of gold with NHS, whatever it might be, think about what's your plan B. How do you run your business and get growth while you devote no more than a small % of your effort to chasing this? Because actually, the chance of it happening is not that great. We had a particular partner with a large organization that we ended up not pursuing because we just didn't like their legals, and it took 9 months. The good news is we assigned a person in the company to go and chase that, and it didn't change the rest of the company. But if your company is only 3 people, that could be a big diversion. So take care on the plan B when you're chasing a giantly mismatched partner company. And your thoughts?
I was just going to say, I think that's so important, and I think we can get distracted. But and I've seen it happen to clients and businesses. You know, this idea of like, if I could do that deal with that business that's got so much traffic and such a huge audience, that would change my whole business. But essentially, like you're saying, if you're a small team, that deal would take up so much time, so much energy, so much money that you take your eye off the ball of actually what you're doing. And you know, basically, I think I talk about this idea of kind of mission critical, like what's the mission critical things you need to focus on to grow your business. And if you're just focusing on one thing that's taking your eye off the business, and yes, it's exciting, isn't it? And it's a huge potential, but I like what you were saying earlier about, you know, starting low key and testing these relationships and seeing if you like working with them and if they've got shared values and if you actually do gel, and growing them from there, and actually just allocating not all your time, energy and money to just one strategic partnership that might never come off the ground. What do you think, Lucy?
Yeah, definitely. And we do that even when it gets to the larger partnerships. So obviously we've been talking about the more startup ones, but when I was launching Skype for mobile, we did everything through partnerships. So it was really about bringing people closer to the things they loved. And so we did it with Marvel, we did it with the White House, we did it with ESPN, Live Nation. And even with Marvel, when we did one launch, it was the end partnership was a multi-year, multi-film partnership, but the first one was a one-off, which was testing whether, one, we could work together, two, you know, it worked for both audiences. And for Marvel, it was the reach that we got and the audience that we would bring, and for us as well, it was about being able to get content and get the things that people really loved closer to them, which were superheroes, and all the fun that you could have with superheroes and simultaneous premieres and all the news we could get off the back of doing that partnership. But definitely at the beginning, it was about tip your toe in the water, see if it works, see if, you know, two big businesses can actually mold together. And it's always quite stressful at the beginning.
Yeah, but also I recommend to, you know, all my clients, like many who don't have big marketing budgets. I mean, when early stage founders do not have big marketing budgets, strategic partnerships are key, I believe. You know, they can really open up your audience. Like we talked, they can help you build trust. You can potentially get PR, like you just said. It is a really great way to start getting traction if you do it correctly. But I think what we're just saying is, don't just be tunnel vision and think that one massive partner is going to change your whole business, and because quite often it could be a distraction.
And when you do have small budgets, you know, bringing two partners together means you've got double the budget, because you can do something bigger, and that's more value for your customers. So, you know, if it's an in-person event, you can suddenly, you know, do more and bring in more partners because each of you have a network. So it's all about, you know, joining forces to do something bigger and better. And that again will be more efficient when you go back to your mission critical, which is so important. You know, what is it that I'm trying to do? What is my key objective to drive my business forward?
And this is the strategic partnership here, isn't it? We've got sort of like a shared audience, and we do these to add value to our clients, and also to connect with each other. So, and even though some people, Lucy, some people might say we're sort of competitors, but we're actually not quite competitors, are we? But I think today's a really good show of how strategic partnerships on that sort of low level that Anthony was talking about, the sort of the simple small level, what can work.
Definitely.
Cool. Should we have a little look at the questions, but before we do that, just one last thing I wanted to talk about was how to structure this relationship. So Anthony talked about this kind of idea of the referral fees, and you can do your strategic partnerships where you've got your affiliate set up, where you're maybe paying them or they're paying you. But there's lots of other ways that you can structure the relationship, isn't there? There's lots of other ways that you can do it. And could you give me some ideas, Lucy, of some of the ways that you've worked together with some of the brands that you've worked with?
So I think, first of all, it's about having a session together and really talking about being very open about what the objectives you're trying to reach, and understanding the opportunity and talking through the different plans to understand the opportunities. Once you have that, I think simply getting it in writing. I know that Anthony, I'm sure on SeedLegals there's a document for this, but I've used very simple partnership deals where we talk about, what are the key things that we're each delivering and what do we expect from each other. And that just sets out, who's going to be the key contact. Is the timing actually suitable for both of you? Does it fit in with both of your campaign plans? And then you can really start to build it because you're on a level playing field and you know what you're developing. And then it's, how you best work with each other. So is it about weekly check-ins? Is it about shared documents and shared building plans, and looking at how you best fit together? And I don't think there's one way that works. I think that is about being open with each other in the first place about what you're trying to achieve.
Yes, I agree with all of that. You might think about, when you're growing your business, a bit like a roulette game. You can either put all your money on 26 red, I'm guessing it's red, I don't know, or you could spread it over, some of it on, odds or evens or red or black or something like that. So if you are pinning your entire business on one NHS partnership, it may be that you actually have to do that because there's no alternative. That's the only way you're ever going to get validated, certified, whatever it is. That's a big bet. If it doesn't work, then nothing happens. But how can you create it so that there's some small bets and some big bets? And there's nothing wrong with big bets. In fact, they have the big payoffs, but you don't want to walk away with nothing if that doesn't work out. So, and then I think the other thing is, of course, in your mind, you know exactly what you want from the other person. How do you sell the other person, of course, on the benefits that they're going to get? Because otherwise, you're just going to be one of many people coming to them because, I'm sure, for example, Stripe have got millions of users. And if you can do something with Stripe on payments so that everyone going to the Stripe website will be recommended your site for the awesome accounting, legal, whatever things you do, how are you going to persuade the people at Stripe to do something with you? So you're going to have to create that alternate value. And then I think writing down what the goals are and the likely timing on both sides is really helpful so that you don't end up sort of almost intentionally vaguely going into things to avoid speccing it out. But then 6 months later, you don't know what success is or not. Your own team are going, well, oh, wise one, it's a bit of a waste of time, this. Can we kill it? And you go, I don't even know who the owner there is anymore. So keeping it tight, keeping frequent check-ins. Is it working? And of course, if it's just a blob on your partner webpage, there's not a real cost to that, except the cost is someone else's logo could be there instead. So maybe there's always a cost to everything you do, which means you have to make sure it's going to have a return. Otherwise, you shouldn't do it.
And I would say, like, early stage founders, we're all short on time, energy, and money. Those are all resources that are in short supply. So we need to maximize the value of those. So Jules is saying, once you've found partners, this is a great question because we haven't really covered it yet. Once you've found partners that are a good fit, how do you work out the best marketing approach for you and your partner mutually? I've made some good connections, but not really mastered what kinds of campaigns we should be doing together. So Lucy, what are your thoughts on that?
I would look at what are you running at the moment that's working successfully, and how could they integrate into that? Or in the same way, so Emmie, for example, you do lots of LinkedIn lives. Yeah. So if you started talking to someone else, what a great opportunity would be either to join a masterclass with you or to do a LinkedIn live, because that's where you're most comfortable. That's what your audience really enjoy. And that's a good channel. So it's that starting point. Other ones are, so it really is, how do you fit into those current plans? Because actually that's your lowest hanging fruit, because you don't have to set it from scratch. You've already got a format that works that they can fit in with. So it's testing something in an easy way. The other ways, if you do a lot in person, or you do a lot of, going back to in-person events at Yolt, we used to do a monthly expert session, which was all about bringing in people that looked at the world differently and turned things on their head. And so we could then, it was very easy when we started talking to partners, we could talk to them about, you know, if they were relevant, they'd want to be part of that content series because it was really successful and it joined with their brand. So yeah, really finding inroads rather than starting something from scratch. Find what you're already doing and integrate them.
Yeah, we were just saying before, I've got some slides actually that I've created for this in the past. So on one of those slides, it talks about all the different ways you could do things you could do with partners, but it's also things like your newsletter. So like if you're sending out a newsletter, you could do a shout out to a brand that you love and they could do the same in their newsletter. You know, you could, like Lucy said, you could go live on each other's social channels, you can do workshops together. There's lots of potential, I think. And I think once you've reached out to them, like Lucy was saying, it's probably about having a brainstorm, isn't it? Like, what are you already doing that's working well? Where have you know, where's your audience and how can we tap into each other's audience and benefit them? I think we were talking earlier about, you know, there's your business, their business and the audience. And as long as everyone's getting a mutually win-win situation, it works. Anthony, how you obviously do lots with strategic partnerships and, you know, this is how we both started working with SeedLegals. What would you say to Jules? What are your thoughts?
I think it's, I'd probably use this analogy of hosting a party. One person has the traffic, the other's got the venue, someone's arranging the food and the beer, and someone's bringing the content. And so when you look at it, when you're doing any sort of partnership, you're either bringing content and or knowledge. You might be bringing technology, which might be the hosting of something, or you might be bringing traffic. And so if you're a small company, your ideal partnership might be you've got domain expertise, you've got content, and someone else has got traffic. And they're going to want you on their webinar, event, whatever, because you're a domain expert and you're relying on them to bring the traffic. And of course, your goal is to convert that traffic into be users of your site products. You might also want, of course, to build your own brand and network so that you're going to get invited to more such events because you're going to do a great gig on the events. But of course, without, you know, putting off the organizer on that. But I think with the party analogy, who's bringing the cheese, who's bringing the people, and who's hosting the venue, probably is a reasonably good analogy. And if you both have bringing the same things, then you know, either there's no real reason for doing it, or you're just adding the distribution lists together to get 3x the people in the event, and it's just fine, and it's a meeting of minds, somewhat like today.
And everyone loves a good party, don't they? So if you put a good party on, then everyone's going to be happy about it.
Exactly.
So Brenda's saying, any suggestions on how you can limit a large or medium strategic partner from using the partnership knowledge to develop their own solution? So I imagine, Anthony, does your affiliate agreement protect people in that way?
No, because anything they do will not be per the affiliate agreement. So you've raised clearly a really good point. So if you've got a large company that wants to partner with a small company, the question is why they're doing it. And the reasons are sometimes obvious and sometimes that you're told, and sometimes even internally it's not obvious. So I saw when I raised investment from large strategic partners a few startups ago, it became clear that large companies are unable to innovate. And the way they innovate is they invest or buy small companies or maybe partner with them and then have the founders come in and talk to the team and spread news about innovation and things like that. Sometimes the goal is that they are going to buy your company, so that's great. Your fear, of course, is you're just going to teach them things and they're going to go off and do it. Either they're going to learn how to innovate like crazy as you do, or they're simply going to go and nick what you've been doing. It's hard to have any legal agreement that will protect you against that, because no matter what the agreement says, you know, it's quite frequent you see somebody going Google or Apple or Facebook or whatever. I demoed something to them and, you know, a year later, guess what? They came out with such a product. But who's to say they weren't working on it for years before you were doing it, and they just went, yours is no better, we'll keep going with ours. So it's actually impossible broadly, unless you find a smoking gun of your source code, in their system. But so I think the way that you really need to do it is start on the basis that you're not sharing anything that's that confidential. I mean, they can always go to your website anyway and see your product, and only somewhat later downstream are you going to share source code or super confidential things, and then you want to make sure it's protected. But otherwise, how can you do it as the suitable win-win? If you have to get too heavy on legals before you do anything, then you'll never get started. You'll spend months, with lawyer to lawyer doing things, at the end of which you'll go, sorry, what were we wanting to partner again? Who are you? No, the business has moved on. So you want to find something light touch that isn't giving away too many secrets, and then develop it. And that's maybe why I like to go sort of small, medium, and large. What can I divulge a little bit to get some reward, and then work upstream from there?
Perfect. So starting small, like we said. So
if
Lucy,
possible.
should we move on to the next question, Lucy, or did you have anything you wanted to add? I'm just aware we've got 6 questions.
Oh no, I think that was Anthony answered that one perfectly.
Perfect. So the next one's, what's a good way to find strategic partners as an LGBTQ+ charity? We need their money, but I find it hard to engage with companies and pique their interest when they know that potentially all they get in return is social media exposure, even though their accounts often have a lot more followers than ours.
So I would look at what are the problems that they're trying to solve at the moment, and it might be it's probably bigger than exposure. It's probably about reputation, or maybe it's about recruitment and being seen as an equal opportunities employer. And really, what you're giving to them is not necessarily exposure, but you're giving to them that stamp of approval that they are equal opportunities and that they are, forward thinking and so that might be. So I would approach it as, how can we support you to support your staff, or in that way, thinking about what is it that they're trying to do. And actually, that's a rule for all outreach. Never think about outreaching to tell them what you do, but think about outreaching to offer them value and to help them solve a problem that you think they might be having.
It's right. So I think that's a really interesting one, because in that case, on its face, it's a bit of a mismatch. You're approaching some random company, and now how do you persuade them to do something with you? And I don't know the answer, but I think 2 things come to mind. One of them, the obvious starting point is, as Lucy mentioned, which is about showing the right angle and so on to your company and being forward looking. But it may turn out that there are quite a few other angles, because if you have many other people in your organization who can be using your services, maybe part of it is, we've got 35,000 members and some of them might want your services. Can we talk about that? So look for some other benefits as well. And the second thing is, maybe you can look on LinkedIn or on Twitter and find people in that company that share your values and go pitch to them, rather than to the CEO or somebody who may not be your exact demographic, and find the right in and explore that.
I think that's great advice. And how do you control, okay, so this is, how do you control strategic partnerships? For example, if after 6 months it doesn't work out, what's the best approach to part ways without affecting brand or bad press online? That's a great question, isn't it? And I think maybe that's why we were saying earlier, start these relationships off, slowly, low level, so that you can, you're not just jumping in. It's like finding a co-founder as well, isn't it? It's like, make sure you've got these shared aligned values, so that as much as you can before you're really sort of, I don't know, connected. I want to say jumping into bed with someone, but it's kind of that thing, isn't it? Don't do that straight away. But if that does happen, if it doesn't go to plan and it doesn't work out, how do you do that? How do you part company in a nice way without it having a negative impact on your business or their business?
Send them a text message saying, dude, you're out. No, so I think a couple of things. Firstly, you might actually structure it from the beginning more like an opt-in than an opt-out. So you might say the agreement is renewed or reassessed every 6 months or 12 months. So instead of having to send them some letter saying you wanted to terminate, actually it's by mutual agreement that it continues, and the default is it terminates. So this works if both parties aren't depending for their livelihood on this partnership. It's great. Hey, team, make 12 partnership things next month, set them all for automatic reassessment every 3 months. And if the ones don't perform, kill them. But if this is important to your business, of course, you want it to be a bit different. The second thing is, what's the technical and cost of ending the relationship, and the marketing costs? In other words, what things have you enmeshed together? So if the cost, the things you need to do to actually end it are just, post a message on Slack saying, hey team, stop sending people to X because it's ended, it's super easy. But if you've got APIs that are built and the bank is built into their website that it's sending people to you, actually you can't just turn it off because you're going to break their site. And as a result, the bank would have had all sorts of legal agreements to prevent you doing that. So you want to be careful to not enter some partnership that, unless the reward that is defined up front is high enough to do that. If it turns out that you can't just pull the plug because something else will go into fibrillation over there, then that becomes much harder. But I think the simple thing is try to set it up so that every couple of months, 3 months, 6, 12 months, if you want, you get together and decide, do you want to renew? In which case things come to an end amicably, nicely, because it just doesn't quite get enough to renew, rather than someone has to send the other a Dear John letter.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely, and add into that, we'd always have a break clause where we'd review. And I think that's where we set clear goals. So it's not about you having to phone up and say, we don't want to partner with you anymore. But it's that, if we're not meeting, what are those shared goals that we're putting down, and, putting it as a stake in the ground. So if we're not meeting those, then naturally you either need to change the type of relationship you have with them and the type of partnership, or it's that, we stop that partnership. But then it's very clear on both sides, because you can see where they can see where they're coming to as well.
Fantastic. Well, that's great advice. So Anthony, I thought your microphone was off. I didn't know if you. So we've got another question saying, can you share any challenges forming an enduring collaboration with early users, getting beta testers, etc.? Does it change the collaboration if you're also wanting them to pay? Are there any disadvantages and advantages of trying to get money from them early? So I suppose this is where Benjamin's saying getting money off the strategic partners. It's kind of, I don't know about you, but I've found in early stage businesses, it's the win-win relationship that works the best. I don't know, have you had any experience of that?
I think that's a genius question, actually. So, I think in our minds, we've been thinking about partnerships, sort of things like this, right? Mutual collaboration, but often a partner is, so I'm an investor in a music app, and in the music app, we would like music labels to bring artists to the app, and we'd like them to ideally pay for advertising the app. So there's the easy part and the hard part. The easy bit is, hey, send people to our app, we'll show them a good time. But it costs us for each event. What we really want is the long-term vision is people are going to pay for that. So how do you start testing that? And that's the problem that many companies run into. So when you're an investor and you're looking to invest in a company, you're looking for signs of growth. And growth means your consumer traffic is rising month on month. And if you're not there yet, then you've got partnerships, agreements with revenue in place. And if you're not there yet, then you've got partnerships with traffic in place. And if you're not there yet, you've got partnership discussions in place. So you're always you've got your big goal, but if you're not there yet, which is fine, because one day you started the business, there was nothing, and now you need to claw your way along. And so if you have partner arrangements where there is no money being earned from that, that's great, but the investor will be drilling you as to how you can then turn on the monetization. And you may find, so this is the difficult problem, which is if you want to charge a partner upfront and you've got a very beta product, by charging them, they're going to perhaps be expecting the quality of service, the reporting, the data, whatever it might be, the features to be commensurate with them paying for it. If you don't charge and you say it's a freebie, that's great. But 6 months later, they've now, like a drug dealer, giving people free things. They've become accustomed to free. And when you hit them up and say you need to pay, suddenly they all evaporate. And that becomes a big negative with investors, because they see that you've got free and you don't have paid, but your business needs paid to survive. You're hemorrhaging money supporting this. And the next big test is, can you turn those free ones into paid? There's no obvious answer, but investors will be, if they see that your business is built on paid partnerships, then the more you're doing that are not paid is just sort of a ticking clock waiting for that payment to be turned on. It's better than not having the partnership at all, but you now need to figure out how to pay. And maybe one way to do it is, if you are spawning up multiple partnerships, maybe your first ones have to be free because A, you haven't built a payment system, so you just can't pay. B, you haven't built enough stuff to be chargeable yet. But a couple of partnership things later, the next ones start seeing, can you monetize those? Test different price points. And if nobody's willing to pay, then you've got a serious problem, because your business is just drip feeding others and you haven't proved your value enough to get people to pay. And now, by the way, when you do ask partners to pay, often it's a sort of advertising approach. So you've got an app, you're now going to a brand. When you've got, let me try it another way. If you have an app with hundreds of thousands of daily users, you're just going to run some mobile ads or whatever in the app. Until then, you don't have enough volume to do that. So you want strategic partners who ideally are going to pay you by event or by branding something or by star. And they won't want complicated reporting features. They will pay more to be an early adopter and get the vibe. And you now want to get them to pay. And so will they pay you £20,000 for an event? Will they pay you £200? So you actually need to try and test and validate that, and actually forcing, or at least permission marketing and of creating the FOMO and the desire to get that payment is actually super important to attract investors, to set the tone with other partners, and to find out yourself the way partners really value your app. So that was quite a lengthy rant from me on that, because I know that space well, and that's actually the key to actually many early stage businesses that rely on those sort of big branded, particularly brand partners who are going to buy advertising or space in your app. And monetizing them as early as possible is an important goal.
Mm. Yeah, I think you can see it from some of the big, particularly in the B2C space. So if you look at Skype had 300 million users and it was free, and it was bought by Microsoft as an on-ramping. The same for WhatsApp, was it 800 million users, and it was bought by Facebook for on-ramping, so they're able to start, advertising to that audience. And so you see it with some, Monzo are now looking at, it was always free and it was always about being free, and they're now looking at ways that they can build revenue because they don't have the foreign exchange that they did have. So you can see where people get to a certain stage and realize, oh gosh, how are we going to start building that revenue? We've got this traction. But it's also, as Anthony said, it's really important in the beginning, as you are still testing, especially when you're still in beta, you need those people to know that things might go wrong or that it might not be perfect, and you're improving that experience and you want to build it with them. So asking them to pay in the first place is going to be quite a hard ask, because it's not going to be a perfect experience. It's about thinking about at what stage can you give them that value that will encourage them to turn from being free to paying, and what is that value that they determine that they think is important enough for them to start paying your subscription or start buying your product from you. And you do that through really understanding their benefits and needs, and a continual conversation with them.
Perfect. Probably got time for one, potentially two more questions. So what could be the best structure for revenue-based partnerships? Does SeedLegals support such agreement?
It's a great question. Thank you. We haven't gotten into really commercial contracts as yet. So I don't have an answer. Before you spend lots of money with lawyers, my suggestion is try and define in sort of plain English what you would like. So, I mean, going to a lawyer is great for codifying what you want. If you go to the lawyer too early, you'll waste lots of billable hours trying to help them define something you could have defined yourself. So with your partner, you're going to work out, I'm going to send you this traffic, you're going to send me this, I'll bill you for that. If it doesn't work, we'll end here. Don't try and pretend to be a lawyer and put capitalized letters, because everyone knows that that's not. And just define in plain English. And then it may turn out, depending on the level of value, an email might be all that's needed. You set out what you plan to do. You're going to charge 200 quid for the event. There's no need to spend £5,000 on legals to pay for that. If you're exchanging user data with each other, that's a bit of a different matter. So GDPR and so on. But for many early stage things, simply an email may suffice. The other thing is you can go on SeedLegals and download our affiliate agreement. Part of it is standard boilerplate, NDA, what law it is. You can just download that as a PDF, turn it into a Word doc, and edit it. You then decide whether it's good law or not. But again, if it's £100,000 deal, spend money on getting the legals right. If it's you sending me some people for my next gig, an email and maybe a manually create a document is all that's needed for that.
Fab. Any thoughts on that? I was wondering if the question was also around, like, when they say the best structure, like, are they wondering what percentage terms or like how you structure the nitty-gritty of the money deals? Have you got any thoughts on that, Lucy? Because obviously it's really important, isn't it, to be really clear on all your financials and what it costs you to acquire customers and what your lifetime value and all of those things before you go offering a partner 30% and you haven't accounted for that and you haven't thought about this. And so have you got any thoughts on that? Because I think that's really important.
A big structure for affiliates, because we've looked at affiliates from lots of different points of view, from, if you're in finance, it's, money saving expert sort of affiliate to your reseller affiliates. And one thing that we've struggled with and learned from is that it shouldn't just be on a cost per acquisition. Actually, what we tend to do is structure it that you have one cost. So for your affiliate, they can drive one customer. As soon as that customer becomes a customer, you pay them a certain amount. When you then set what it would be, so say, once that customer is still with you 6 months on, or whatever you deem to be a retained customer, you then give them a little bit extra, because what you're then encouraging is them not to just drive quantity, but actually to drive quality users that are going to really support your business and stay with you for the long term. And that really has helped and structured. And the way that I'd set that cost is looking at your media CPA, so how much it would cost you to get somebody in through advertising, and then we tend to ask for a slightly less than that. So and that has been a really simple structure that has worked really well to drive quality leads through affiliates over the last few years.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I know we've still got a few more questions, but I'm aware that we are coming up to nearly 2 o'clock. Anthony, you've got to go, haven't you? Or have you got time for one more question?
I've got time for a few more questions. Go for it.
Okay, perfect. So we've got from Tony, if a cold approach is the only option as there's no connection in your existing network, what is the way to approach it? So I'll just say very quickly what I do, which has worked really well. I just reach out to people on LinkedIn and I say, hi there, I think, we've got a shared audience. I'm really interested to have a conversation with you. Would you be up for that? Pretty much everyone that I've ever said to that has said, yes, I would be up for having a conversation. And then I think you can just take it from there and you can hop on a call and you can have a little chat about what they do, what you do, and talk to them about if there is an opportunity to partner with them. But yeah, I think most people are really open to it. I would just say LinkedIn is your friend. Go and use LinkedIn and connect with people through direct message. I don't know if Anthony or Lucy's got anything extra to add there.
I agree. I think, of course, the panacea is always a warm lead. If you can reach out to a mutual person who knows the other party to do a warm intro, that's great. The problem is you just don't know people, otherwise you would have done that already. But I think, most people are nice. Most people want to be helpful. And if you send them a non-spammy, nice message on LinkedIn going, hey, we're doing X, I'd love to tell you more. I think, I see your passion in this. So make sure you demonstrate that you've spent a bit of time understanding what they do, rather than just telling you, I want you for this. Then I think you'll have a decent response rate of somebody then getting to the next thing. So don't try and sell them in your single LinkedIn message on the complete partnership, because that's like marriage. On the first date, it's not going to work. Your goal is to get to the second date and then take things from there. So I might have gone completely the wrong analogy here, but anyway, the idea is, with your cold outreach, it's just to get a meeting to explain more, not to do the partner deal on that.
I think 100%. I think that personalization, I mean, we could talk all day about outreach, but I think also like a really good way, if you're really looking to hit people up, is to also engage with, if you're on LinkedIn, engage with their content and understand what they're doing and what they're passionate about before you do outreach to them. Because that will, if you don't have that warm intro, they'll have seen you engage in their content and they'll have seen you supporting them, and it will increase that propensity to actually accept.
I always wonder, sorry, if like somebody's liked 3 of my posts and then hits me up with something 2 days later, it's like, is that seriously premeditated, or do we just happen to connect? But it's an interesting strategy.
And Lucy and I were talking earlier about this lovely quote from Seth Godin, which is, if you show up regularly with generosity, everything else is going to take care of itself. So I believe, like the strategic partnerships, it's thinking not necessarily always about what can I get out of it, but like if you're showing up with generosity, honestly, it will work, and I think having that kind of mindset when you're going into these strategic partnerships, and also knowing that it takes time to build relationships. People aren't just going to necessarily do something straight away. They want to get to know, like, and trust you. We've got time for one last question. So a question from a tech startup perspective: what advice do you have for a startup looking to get an exclusive license agreement for sharing of web services, APIs, in place with another and more established tech company? That is, they'll integrate with our API and vice versa. FYI, we are mutually interested in using each other's tech. Anthony.
That's obviously quite specialized. That goes for me in that top level category, because your APIs are unlikely to be ready for prime time yet. You're going to have to build in a lot more things for them. You're going to have to do the security. Your web team or your dev team would have told you, yeah, dude, of course we've got APIs. Everything's built on APIs. And then as soon as you start talking to the partner, they're going to tell you, well, you see, our APIs are designed for internal use only. They don't have the external security, and we need to set up a TLS thing and VPN thing and whatever it is. And suddenly you realize there's way more work than you had thought. And the partner is not going to like your schema and wants you to do something else. You have to work out the single sign-on issues. And it turns out to be way bigger than you thought, which is fine, of course, if the prize is reliably there at the end of it. And I think that's really, you're putting your money on sort of 26 red at that point, as opposed to spreading, or maybe you are playing the board in the other endeavors you're doing. So if your business has a suitably big reward and there aren't other things in play, and you want to take that big bet, go for it. But think about what happens if their business changes, if they're much larger than you. Maybe your key contact gets another job elsewhere and you've lost your champion within their business, and then the whole thing founders, which is a not uncommon problem. So has it been effort well spent, even if that doesn't come off, or if it doesn't work out? Imagine, maybe the short answer is just figure out, if 3 or 6 months from now this deal doesn't work out, what would have been the mitigation, so that at that point you go, well, we gave it a go. It was a calculated return on investment. It didn't work out. First, oh shit, we just screwed the business and wasted our devs team's time, who will never talk to me about a partnership deal ever again as a result. So if you come up with the right way, it didn't work out, we made a bet, we've got plan B, then go for it.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for your time. And also, Lucy, thank you. It's been amazing to have everybody here. And obviously, we can share this to the people that didn't manage to make it. Thank you, Anthony, for your time, and see everyone soon.
Thank you. And by the way, to the questions, is SeedLegals just a platform? You can just hit the web chat, and we're here to help in person as well, Tony. So thanks for the question.
And thank you everyone for your feedback. We loved having you all today, and thank you for everyone who managed to make it to the end. And yeah, feel free to get in touch with any of us. We all love growth and anything to do with entrepreneurship. So see you all soon. Bye.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.